Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar this morning discussing moving live events online. I'm James, I'm the General Manager of the EMA. Some of you probably know me. I'm not going to waste much time talking because we've got lots to get through. We have an amazing panel of very wise people to help us sort of navigate this subject, because it's not as straightforward as just flipping a live event into the virtual space. But I'm going to keep my mouth shut and hand over to Martin Fullard, who is the editor of Conference News and chief event industry champion at the moment. He is going to be running things from here. Marty, over to you.
Thank you, James. Not sure about chief champion, but I'll take the compliments where we can find them. It's very lonely here in the spare bedroom. Thank you for having me. I'd like to thank the Marketing Association for all the hard work they continue to do to the event engage. I think this are absolutely crucial like this. We make sure we don't slack and we stay on top of all the latest need to know knowledge. Today's session really is quite we use this it's as simple as maybe switching from live to digital. So I'm joined by an absolutely fantastic panel, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves individually in clockwise order as they appear on the screen in front of me. So Jamie, if I could ask you to introduce yourself first.
Hey Marty, hi everybody, and thank goodness you became a robot and came out again. I'm not sure if you knew that, but you broke up quite a lot, so you're now back with us, so well done you. Hi everybody, I'm Jamie Vaughan. I'm head of European sales for Cvent. Cvent being the large software company for event management. I've personally been in the industry for over 10 years in event technology, everything from apps, registration, on-site, all that sort of stuff. So I've seen lots and lots of good times, one or two bad times, but nothing quite like this. This is fairly unprecedented, so happy to show you some ideas of how we're navigating this, some of the software that we have, and some of our partners. This isn't about Cvent, this is about my knowledge as an industry expert. Good to see you all.
Thank you, Jamie. Juliet.
Hello, good morning everyone. So I'm Juliet Tripp. I'm Senior Events Manager at Chemical Watch, and I organise international conferences, so not so international right now, but I've been in the industry about 10 years. I've been venue side and now corporate side, and yeah, I speak at industry events as well and just love all things events, so looking forward to a good discussion this morning.
Thank you, Juliet. Karen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kaden, one of the founding managing partners of a creative agency called Brands at Work. We specialize in business to business, business to consumer, and business to employee communications. Live being our sweet spot, but we have many, many hats that we can wear, and certainly finding that we are juggling hats in the current climate. I've been in the industry longer than I care to admit, probably 20 years, so I have seen some tragic circumstances before, including living in New York during 9/11. So that was quite an event that rocked the industry, and we found our resilience then, and we're finding it now. And my focus today is really going to be helping you think about how to humanize your virtual events, how to make them, engaging and memorable and sticky, and making sure that your content and your creative is rich. And as you rightfully said, Marty, it's not as simple as just flipping the switch from live to virtual. There are a lot of considerations, and you'll talk a little bit more about this, but we've created a white paper that you're all going to get at the end of this, because I'll give some top line thoughts on it, but it goes into a much deeper dive that I hope will be of use to many of you, and answering a lot of the questions that we saw coming in before the event.
Great. And Richard.
Hi Marty, I'm really just here as chair of EMA. Welcome everybody. I think we've hit a record. I think we're getting up to over 200 attendees today, which is brilliant. And just to encourage everyone, our members, etc., to share these links and push it out to other people out there, and build the awareness for EMA. And I'll jump in with some questions occasionally. Cheers.
Great. Okay, Karen, we're going to start with you, and I think we agree that you can't just switch an event from a live environment to an online one. So I'm going to ask you really, what do you think are the key differences in organisation, not just events people should be aware of? Does it require a more coherent engagement strategy? What may that look like, and what are the emotional factors that perhaps we need to consider?
So it's a good question. I mean, I think any event requires a good engagement strategy, but now more than ever, they really do. And if, you know, we've all heard the adage, content is king, but it's certainly holds true more so now than ever, because the reality is attention spans are shorter online. We don't have the same thresholds for pain when we're in a virtual event versus when we are on site and a keynote speaker on stage goes on for a little too long because we know the coffee break is imminent. We're going to get to chat to our mates at the cappuccino bar. So I think there's a whole host of issues to be contending with right now. One is energy. It's just not the same. You have to be able to kind of create energy, and it's a lot harder to create and capture and hold the attention spans of audiences when you're in a virtual event. Another thing right now, which is true now, it might not be true in a few months' time, but we're kind of looking at this glimpse of time, is schedules. The reality are people's lives have just been rocked by this, and people who had schools as childcare no longer necessarily have that option. And so, you know, what might have been a 3-day event or a 1-day event with back-to-back keynotes and workshops, et cetera, that might not be able to hold true right now when a lot of your audience might have childcare issues at home. So distractions and that sort of dreaded glaze over effect that we get in staring at a screen for too long. So there's so many considerations, but energy, attention span, schedules, distractions, all of those are huge factors at play right now. So it's absolutely critical that you design a user experience specifically for communicating in this world.
Good. And just a quick note to our audience, there is a Q&A function on the software. So if you do have a question for our panel, please do fill it in and we will get those up towards the end of the session. Jamie, if I could say to you, you're in quite an interesting from the event technology background. Can you maybe give us an idea of what goes into making a suitable platform and how this event actually manages this in-house? I guess that's quite an interesting angle to explore. What lessons can you take from that to share with our audience to running online events?
Okay, I'm going to repeat that question because you broke up again. Everyone else is getting that.
I'm sorry.
There you go. But no, I think you said ideas around the platform, how we're managing this from a receiver perspective, and lessons. Does that pretty much summarize that question?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. And you got a note, we got you, so turn Netflix off on your second screen, mate, and concentrate on this. Right? Yeah, wow. There's many components to this, but first of all, platform. I mean, I'm not going to go into depth about which conferencing platform. There are so many out there. And some are free, like Zoom, and some are great, and some are a little bit more in depth where you have to consider security and authentication. So do your research. I would not suggest you just look at the glossy brochures online. I would suggest you look at case studies, look at real user experiences. This is a case sort of for any software really, but particularly now, there will be a plethora of great experiences and poor experiences. So do a bit of research on your platform beforehand. Make sure you're getting lots of 5-star reviews or lots of ticks in boxes that it went well, it operated, was smooth, the Q&A and all that was correct. The actual component of the platform like this is an important part, but it isn't everything. Lessons, absolutely, so many. So, excuse me, virtual events aren't necessarily new. Okay, this is a fallacy. They've not just come and hit us on the head. We, as a software provider, we absolutely love and embrace face-to-face, and everyone on the panel will agree with me that this is the future, and we're going to go back to the normal rather than the new normal. At the same time, probably not that long ago, we were all hit over the head with sustainability requirements and why people traveling everywhere all the time, and is this necessary? So we've been running virtual elements for quite some time, and that hasn't changed. They've just accelerated enormously. And the lessons we've learned is that people, I hate to say it, people are knee-jerking slightly, not doing their research and throwing events online or virtual because they think they can. Well, I assume your audience is predominantly meeting planners, event planners, and they spent a lot of time learning the trade, whether that's at school, university, or hands-on experience. Everything you've learned shouldn't change. Nothing changes. Don't just throw an event and say, hey, please turn up and see how we get on. Put your planning, put your marketing process in place, have registration, let people log in, know where they came from, track your attendees. The virtual element of the event is the only replacement from a traditional face-to-face. Everything else is the same. Look at your engagement, I'm sure we'll talk about it later. Look at the reporting, look at the data, look at everything that you'd normally do, and make sure you have a facility to bring that to pass. I mean, we, Cvent as a vendor, we have integration with all the platforms. So, WebEx, Zoom, all the guys. So you can easily use a traditional platform for registration, engagement, and all that, and have a virtual element instead. and still track all the data and behavior and content distribution in the same way as you always could. So in that respect, nothing really changes. So don't just knee jerk, because that's when mistakes happen. Keep budgets around. They don't try and do things on the cheap, because you wouldn't normally do that. So do things correctly and look at the purpose of why this is in place. So look at the data, look at the whole journey, because that still absolutely can be executed.
I'm hoping you can hear me. Can you hear me, guys?
Better, yes.
Yeah, good. It's a hardware problem my end. I've got a backup device if I need it. But Julia, I'm going to come to you. You're a corporate event manager at the Coalface, and I understand you've taken a number of events to Chemical Watch online. Can you maybe share with us your experiences and what planning on this took to get that event happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So you did break up a little bit there, sorry. But so I'll chat a little bit about taking our Chemical Watch events online and some of the planning that we have done so far. So I'll just start by saying a month ago today, I was in Washington, DC, kicking off a 2-day conference. So, you know, how things have changed in a month. It's absolutely crazy. But we are quite lucky as a company that we did have a few sort of virtual elements already. And as Jamie quite rightly said, this hasn't just hit us on the head. You know, virtual events have been around for some time. So we already run some webinars, both free and paid, for our community. We live stream our conferences as well. So at our event last month, we had at the last minute probably a third of our conference attendees swap onto our live stream offering. So we were incredibly lucky and grateful that we had that already planned. So, so we kind of knew about that. However, it's been a real learning curve quickly for us as an events team and our wider company to kind of understand exactly what is a virtual event and how do we kind of create them and how do we improve them. So as I say, things have moved quickly. A key thing for us has been getting a really good buy-in from our team so that as a company, we are having a sort of strict message that goes out to all of our communities and our customers. Sorry, I'm having a bit of an echo. There we go. And yeah, and buy-in from all the stakeholders involved. So that's not just us as an events team, but we have a whole editorial team that help us with our content as well. We have obviously our marketing team, our account managers, and we need to have one clear and consistent message about why these virtual events that we're producing are really important. So we're very, very lucky that we work with an incredible in-house AV team. So they've been working super hard, looking at platforms, considering all those things that Jamie just mentioned, and actually how we can best serve our audiences. But really, we've just been sort of preparing all the different people that are involved. So making sure we've got that key messaging, briefing our speakers. So we've got speakers that are used to speaking on stage in front of big audiences. How do they adapt their speaking styles? Suddenly they're presenting from their spare room or from their bedroom. So it's all these considerations as well around how we deliver that content, which again we'll go on to throughout this session this morning. But just being ready and being agile and understanding that things move quickly, and we've still got to serve our communities with that content to help them. You know, this is the option now. Right now, we don't know when we're going to be doing live events, so we have to really work out how we can serve those communities.
Great, thank you, Juliet. I'm hoping my microphone's holding up now. Karen, returning to you, Brands at Work, as you mentioned, published a white paper on effective engagement. We touched on it at the start, but perhaps you could give us a bit more insight.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. So we've got a bit of eye candy. I did see that somebody just raised their hand. I don't know if you want to take that, Marty, while I pull this up, or no, I'll just share my screen.
We'll come to that shortly if we'll do the white paper presentation now. Okay,
got it. Just pulling this up now, and the white paper we've created is Human Events in a Virtual World, and just as Juliet was saying, you know, it's so critical that we recognize that right now the way we deliver events is different to live. The considerations of presenting from your bedroom and all of those things absolutely matter. But just to take us through a little bit of a step-by-step of how to, that I hope will answer a lot of the questions that came through in advance. And the one thing I just wanted to reassure everyone, and the good news is creativity is not canceled. Many of our events have been, but creativity is not canceled. And what you see on the screen is just a collection of some of the amazing examples of human resilience, creativity, and connection that are happening all around the world across social media and live channels. And what I think a crisis like this has actually created an unparalleled sense of global community, and it sparked creative ingenuity in just countless ways. I think sometimes necessity is the mother of all invention. And so, you know, what we're seeing is that we can actually learn a lot from other worlds right now. Social media land can inspire quite a few creative ideas for engagement in a live event setting. So, so different creative challenges that you can put to your audiences, different ways to build community connection. And I'll be going into that a little bit more, but I just wanted to reassure you that yes, creativity is not canceled, and digital events can be human too. So, so I just wanted to, now I'm just pulling this on, I think, talk about a little bit about this new normal that we're all in right now. It's not going to last forever, but I do think it's going to last a while. And what are some of the opportunities in the new normal? If we want to flip the negatives into positives, what are some of the opportunities we have from, you know, building purposeful relationships? I think right now it's so critical that our conversations are purposeful and that they're true to our brands. And this presents a chance to build more togetherness with our people, our customers, our clients. And I think it's all about tone of voice, because if you communicate in a tone deaf fashion, and you've probably seen a few corporates fall into that trap, there will be huge backlash. But if you stay true to your values, remain purposeful in all you do, the way you act in this crisis could cement loyalty. But I think, you know, Jamie and Juliet, you both made a few great points, which is you can't just rush into anything. You have to apply some measured thinking here. We're all exercising comms muscles that we're not used to right now. But on the bright side, this might actually permanently embed some best practices. We might get better at content and comms for the long run. And so maybe some of these things we might want to keep hold of in the long run. So, you know, having a great engagement strategy, focusing on your audience first and your content, getting your story straight, and then nailing your engagement strategy. How do you bring it all to life? That's a good habit under normal circumstances, but certainly more so now. And a little terrible joke, which is, I love spending money on drayage, said no event manager ever. So think about the things that you can, you know, how can you be reallocating budget you would set aside for rigging, venue hire, catering, power, flights, hotels, some of that stuff that we all hate spending money on in events because it doesn't really give us any value. What if you were to just invest a tiny portion of that into developing rich content, compelling content, beautiful screen content, creative ideas, engagement ideas? That is just crucial right now. And then, as Jamie just said, I won't go into most detail, but we have never had a better opportunity to test and measure and test. We've got the metrics, the ability to do that, probably more so in the virtual world than we do even in the live setting. So that's the good news. I'm going to quickly whistle you through a few thoughts on how to help you kind of get to this now. Brands at Work has a methodology called the 4 A's. We've applied it here to just give you a few step-by-step pointers. Again, the white paper goes into much more depth, but the key things here are: don't start with the tech. In the rush to digitize your event, don't lose sight of what's important, engaging your audience. Digital platforms, at the end of the day, they're not a strategy. They are creative. They are vehicles to deliver your creative. It's where you go with them that matters. So there are, as Jamie said, there's some host of options available. Many of our corporate clients already have enterprise solutions that we can kind of work with and complement with other tech tools and technologies. But it's about understanding that you have to start with your audience and you have to empathize with their new reality. Like I said earlier, people's lives have changed, attention spans are shorter. The working day is now combined with homeschooling, grumpy roommates, pets, attention spans are short. Wi-Fi connections are temperamental and we turn into robots. So don't expect too much of your audience right now. They're no longer captive and they're only one tab away from distraction. I think it's a really great opportunity. I think we should be doing this in the live event setting anyway, to ask your audience what they want, personalize the experience for them. Everyone loves being asked their opinion. So do surveys to find out what they want from the event and how is that be changed from when they originally were planning to attend your event if it was going to be a live one. And in general, I think you have to kind of understand that people are craving structure right now. Why are thousands of people every day tuning into Joe Wicks at 9 a.m. for PE? It's because they want an anchor for the day. So if you can find a clever way to slip into your audience's routines, rituals, and workflows, you can help them achieve some virtual efficiency. So a bit of consideration for your audience. Next up is ambition. This is all about knowing your why. You know, what is the why for this event? And if there isn't a good reason, and this interestingly might be a test to some of us, we might find that some events are better delivered virtually, and maybe there wasn't a great reason, and yes, that is better for the environment, but then there are some that will absolutely, you know, it will show that they absolutely need to return to that live human to human interaction setting. But you have to know your why, and again, how has that changed under the current circumstances? Understand your audience. You know, what do you want to achieve? What's clear on the subtleties of that? So what might have been a 500-person learning event, is it more now about just educating 500 people, in which case, is it necessarily an event, or is it a digital portal with learning tools that can be accessed at their own, you know, convenience? I think you have to prioritize a bit more and be realistic. Virtual events can't do everything. So, you know, probably strip some elements back to the fundamentals and be okay with letting some things go. And like I said, again, what might have been a full one-day packed agenda might be better as spread out over a week now that you don't have venue hire considerations, and make it all more bite-sized and digestible and working around people's schedules. And again, I reiterate, stay true to you. Don't lose sense of who you are. You know, brands are built from the inside out, and your content, your format has to stay true to your purpose and values. Now, the approach, how do you even go about this? And you almost have to think of it a little differently. Like I said, the technology, make the technology work for you, not the other way around. We've made that point a few times now. There's an abundance of platforms, all with different characteristics. Most can be customized or combined to fit the best fit for you. But the most important thing you want to do is forget all that, set it aside for a minute, and design from your audience's perspective. So what you see in this picture here is almost when somebody's designing an app, you have to wireframe the user experience. The same is true for virtual events. You have to think about the step-by-step. Jamie talked a bit about it. You know, what is the registration experience? How do we check the mood with the audience? Do we do polls and Q&As and all sorts of different things that you would have done in a live event setting still hold true here? You need to be thinking about each of the touch points of your virtual event experience. Campaign thinking. So where this comes from is the costs and the logistics that confine your event to 1 day or 2 days. That no longer exists. So why not spread your event over a longer period with multiple formats and touch points to make it more punchy and digestible, kind of like a bingeable box set? Those are all options right now. We've made up this term of festivalizing your format. And, you know, we all probably love and miss festivals and the whole idea behind that. But festivals keep things exciting by allowing your audience to find their own way through an event by creating moments of discovery. The same is true in a virtual world. You can create those moments of surprise and delight as well. And festivalizing your format is simply about finding creative venues and ways to house your content that just keep the audience guessing. It's not just a whole Brady Bunch row of rectangles across the screen. There's different ways to get your messages across and clever ways to engage. And you saw some of those examples in that first slide I shared with, you know, creativity is not dead. You know, creativity is still possible. Theatrics are still possible. Pre-event engagement is very important right now. Build your community, involve them, and remember that if you have dull content, it's going to be a dull event. So really, really think about investing right now in incredible content, rich content, and storytelling. And then last but not least, I wanted to just give a smattering of ideas to this audience, because, you know, just to show some of the possibilities. Some of these you'll see are from, you know, past live events we've done, but they're still relevant in a virtual world. So you'll see up at the top in the middle, there's some co-hosts speaking in a breakfast show. That was actually a hybrid event we did for a pharma client where the audience was 4,000, and for learning and development, you know, they're in breakout rooms. So the hosts were comedic hosts, co-hosting and anchoring the event. You can still do that in a virtual world. You just split screen them like John Krasinski's doing with his Some Good News show. Icebreakers, you can still do icebreakers. It's a virtual scavenger hunt. Give everybody a list, and they have to find household items. Dragon's Den, investor gaming activities, things along those lines where you involve your audience. They can go into breakouts and work in teams around hacking problems and challenges and coming back with solutions. That'll bring energy and engagement to your event. If you see here, we did a virtual Post-it note session. So we went a little tech free, and everybody had to go and brainstorm a bunch of ideas around what can we actually be doing during this time that can make the business better in the long run. So we had at-home brainstorms on Post-its and then shared those up all on screen. So there's all sorts of ways to blend solutions. Lego, I was inspired by stepping on my kids' Lego and we were doing serious play, and you know, you can involve your audience in some very clever and involving activations. This, if you see in the middle of the screen here, these little squares, again, a pharma client, we weren't able to go out and film thousands of patients. So we used a technology called CNIT, which is an app that users can download, and you can send content challenges to them. They can record themselves at home selfie videos, giving you a rich repository of video content that then our editors could edit into really moving and inspirational videos. I'll stop there. But there you go. You see a whole host of ideas. You can keep inspired, and in that white paper, you'll see many more. So the sky's the limit.
Thank you, Kay. That was very, that I'm sure, is that something you can share with our panel for our audience for later?
Yes, they're going to be getting the white paper, I believe. If Richard and James are happy to share that with the group, you've got loads of those ideas and more.
Great. Jamie, I'd like to come to you now. We've got what is obviously much trickier in the online world is dealing with engaging prospects during a virtual event. How do we kind of ensure some sort of interaction continues when we're online?
Yeah, well, first of all, this isn't new. I mean, people come to a physical event and you look at the audience, they're down looking at their account on Facebook or checking their email, right? So this has been something that's being addressed for quite some time. The problem is now with virtual, it's people are very fickle, and it's very easy to say, oh, I'll go and make a cup of tea now, or I'll go and do something else. You don't know. There's no correlation there. So it's very, very, very important to put components around the virtual experience that are going to engage audiences. I mean, Karen just delivered millions of ideas, right? So there's some things in there that to drill down on that are probably very relevant. First of all, from a technical perspective, you know, how we addressed engagement over the last 4 or 5 years is with the good old mobile app, right? Lovers or not of apps, they are proven to keep an audience engaged during content sessions with, for example, Q&A and polling and all that. So you keep them there online. You have an app which is a second screen. I mean, sorry, changing text slightly. Second screen is a great point, because in a virtual world, we assume that most delegates will be looking at a single screen. I'm not. I mean, technically, I've got a couple of them, right? But most people have a single screen on a laptop or something. So if they're just looking at one thing, they're not necessarily so engaged. So they may well reach out for their second screen. Okay, so there's every reason to assume that an app would still be relevant for a virtual event, and statistically speaking, that's proven. Okay, so things like voting and polling, you can do them in some of the virtual tools, but it's better to have them in a facility that's branded around your event, because you track it and you measure it. So things like voting and polling, obviously, things like content distribution, like Karen mentioned, you know, apps I can just take that presentation now on my phone. I've got it, right? So things like that are very, very good. But then most importantly, probably is, well, in a normal event, a physical event, you listen to content, you go through the process, and then you have a breakout. It's really, really important to have breakouts, else people are going to be, you know, a little bit bored after some point, no matter how rich the content is. And again, the virtual elements have breakout facilities, so you can use that, or you can have an alternative breakout, like an app or something. The point is to look at the content of that breakout. So you guys will know, I'm sure you know the guys from Song Division, the guys who come and create a song based on words. We had a Song Division session with Steven the other week. It was brilliant. We all went on Zoom. There were about 35 or 40 of us. And it was all free on Zoom, so we didn't have to buy any proprietary software. We had a chat, they entertained us, then we broke out into sessions, and each session wrote a chorus, independent of each other. We all then came back into a session, and they performed this song for us. About 25 minutes, really good fun, great banter, everyone got together, lovely experience, and we achieved something at the end. And that'd be little simple things would be a great way to keep engaged. Another example is we own a company called Social Tables. That's diagrammic software for seating arrangements, particularly for award ceremonies. So I had a client saying, how can we put an award ceremony online? Well, the content is obvious. You can have someone present that and someone can collect it in that respect. But it was the breakout areas. So what we created were virtual tables. So you do a presentation and a speech, then you break back to your table, and then the Zoom would flip, or the conference software would flip into a breakout of just your table while you're sitting around chatting on your table like you would in the real world. So you had inter presentation, table-based conversation, and then content. So I think there's not a lot of limit to what you can do. It's just using your imagination. This is where the creatives of Juliet and Karen, this is where they earn their money, because they're now thinking about how can we make this boring tech come to life with content and life experience. So the question about engagement is absolutely correct. There are many ways you can do it. Don't forget the things like apps and breakout rooms, and those are definitely the things that we're seeing successful right now.
Thank you, Jamie. Living in fear that my microphone's going to die again. Juliet, coming to you quickly. How do we drive audiences to live events and ensure they stay for the duration? How did your attendance figures perform for your online events?
Yeah, so they're new for us. So we're just sort of starting this month with our new virtual events, and we're finding they're performing well. And this is because this is the current reality. Okay, so this is the option that our audiences have right now. They cannot actually travel to conferences and meetings. So this is their new reality. To Karen's point, we need to empathize with their reality. So it's understanding actually how your audience is taking content. Now, I don't know about everyone else, but I certainly have delegates who are a little bit worried about tech, and they might come to us at our events and they haven't managed to download their slides because they love having everything in paper. So don't forget, in the rush of all these exciting flashy things, about those people that do struggle a little bit, and how can you engage them? Do they need maybe a little demo video by your team before the event so that they can understand all those features? Because for you or I, it might be easy to understand how I submit a Q&A question or I download a presentation afterwards. But there are still people out there, and there will be throughout this whole situation, that might struggle with that. So look at engaging them. And interaction is key. So things like Q&As, things like polls, to elevate your event from something which is a webinar, which is a presentation, through to a full sort of virtual event, you need to have these facilities to allow your attendees to engage and not just go downstairs and make a cup of coffee or look after their child when actually someone else could be doing that. It's looking at how we can keep them engaged throughout. Manageable chunks of content is absolutely key for that. So instead of having 30-45-minute presentations, we're now moving to like 15-minute chunks or breakout panels, and regular breaks, regular times to ask questions, and actually what might have been a full 8-hour day for 2 days straight, now that might be broken up to a couple of hours for 3 days. And we need to adapt and understand that actually you can't just copy and paste your in-person conference program into a virtual format. Everyone needs to adapt. So that's your speakers, that's your team, that's everyone involved.
Thank you, Juliet. Well, we've got 8 minutes left, so I'm going to jump into some of the audience questions. We've got them coming in thick and fast. And Juliet, we're going to stay with you. One from Laura Williams. You said you dealt with, you mentioned something interesting about speakers who aren't used to presenting online. She works in the higher education sector, and many speakers and academics are a bit anxious about presenting their keynotes. How can we help them?
Yeah, so I've actually written a blog post and done an Instagram TV about this, so I'm happy to share that afterwards if that would help. But yeah, it's preparing them and knowing that you need to adapt your style slightly. So slides can't necessarily involve so much. You need to do those regular roundups. You need to keep it really simple. Like, have you got your dogs or your children wandering around in the background? Have you got a plain background? Are you still engaging? You might not need to have your webcam on throughout if you're producing slides, but are you coming on at the start to introduce yourself, to allow people to connect that face to the voice? It's just about human connection and understanding things like the power of the pause. I admit I sometimes speak too fast, but how can you kind of engage your audience in the same way that you would on stage, having those moments to take things in? They still need to make notes. Just because you're not there in person, you can't read their reaction. So assume that they need that little bit more time and a little bit more of rounding up of the points that you're making.
Jamie, do you have something to add?
I do actually, because everything Juliet said is absolutely spot on. But there is an alternative. This isn't necessarily, it doesn't have to necessarily be a live event, right? So the notion of live, when physical, you see the person standing there. This could be a complete facade for anybody new, right? So we have an event we're pitching right now where there's 4 days of content, and the majority of that content will be pre-recorded. Okay, so it'd be delivered as a lecture or as a presentation. However, when it is then broadcast live, the speaker will be somewhere available to answer poll questions, but they'll be written answers. So it has the facade of a live event, but then you have the ability to avoid like moderators who sound like Daleks, for example. We can cut that out of that scenario. We can prepare for any tech issues or anything that might go wrong. So that will relieve anxiety, I believe, if you have a particularly bad case. So there are alternatives when you look at a tech scenario.
Thank you, Jamie. Karen, I'm going to throw this one at you, and Jamie, I'll probably get your view on it as well. From Jodie Egan, how do you generate sponsorship revenue from virtual and hybrid events? What opportunities can we offer sponsors? Karen, do you have any views on that?
Not strong views, but absolutely there are still opportunities. So you can still do headline presentations. You can do sponsor breakout sessions and activities throughout the event. So, you know, here's a random example, but let's say you were doing a break. It could be a sponsored refreshment break. And you can create some video content. There, again, if you think of this as like almost like producing a broadcast TV show, think of it almost as like advertorial content. So that's the way you could look at it, is branding opportunities, content within the presentations, or content as bumpers and interstitials and advert breaks. And again, trying as much as possible to make the sponsorship opportunities relevant to the subject matter. So like I said, if it's Innocent Smoothies sponsoring the wellness break, that seems like a good fit. And you might do an at-home in the kitchen with Innocent and blender hacks, and this is how you can create an at-home smoothie using whatever's in your fridge. Things like that, where you just have to think a little bit differently.
Yep. Jamie, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, a couple of things, because Karen's absolutely spot on. Just an extension to that theme is, of course, if you're using the full plethora of a platform, then you have the ability to put the right people into the right tracks, so you can begin to personalize that sponsorship, which has higher value. So if you have particularly senior VIPs, you can put different sponsorship. So if you've got more generic people or students or whatever, so you can definitely tailor, because you're in control of who goes into what streams. Moreover, I saw some examples this week actually of AR. Okay, so I've been pitching about technology for many years, and AR, VR, it's all lovely, it's all great, but where's the real opportunity? Well, guess what? The reason AR hasn't caught on is you've got to look through this crazy screen thing. Well, what we're doing now, we're looking through a crazy screen. So I had an example the other day where I was on a panel and the chap was talking to me and a graph sprung out of his table in front of him. It was like, well, I wasn't expecting that. If you consider, as Karen mentioned, a TV production, they use this all day, every day. Graphs, you know, elections, it's all AR. We have an opportunity to bring our own to the market. And from a sponsor's position, you can imagine, I'm not suggesting I have MASH media flowing as a halo above my head. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it, Marty? But you know, there are so many opportunities to now use the single screen with added technology, and I think sponsorship is the key advantage there.
Yes, Julian would like that. Okay, we've got about 2 minutes left, and there's a question that everyone's coming at, and I want to make it clear that whatever answers we get, none of our panelists will be personally endorsing any particular software or program or platform or whatever vernacular we use. But I'm interested, everyone wants to know, panelists, what softwares or programs are out there that you would advise people go and check out? Juliet, could we maybe start with you?
Yeah, so I will start by saying that the amazing AV colleagues in my team are the experts here, but we've been looking at many different platforms, and I will echo what everyone else has said, which is the first thing that we did is look at the most important aspects of our live events, how we can translate those into a platform, looked at the needs of our audience, did some research, and then looked at the platforms that would best suit and serve our events. So a few that we've looked at, GoToWebinar, Slido, Glisser, Brella, just a few off the top of my head, but there were considerations, and especially, you know, from our management, from our board, there were things that we had to have which were non-negotiables, which are things like white label, so we can brand everything, audience interaction and networking, and ease of use were some key things. So those are just a few ideas, but hopefully we'll confirm our platform this week. It's been, yeah, a learning curve.
Jamie.
Yeah, tough question. But there are so many. It's hard. I don't want to endorse anyone because we don't own or we don't have distinct relationships with these people. But to Juliet's point, let's not confuse also what a platform is. There are aggregators, there are broadcasters, there are people who use platforms and bring them together in a web position. I know a lot of companies that Juliet mentioned very well, and they're really good at what they do. If you're looking at a core virtual platform like a Zoom, or WebEx or there are some really strong players out there. They have resilience. They haven't just turned up overnight. So I would consider the ability of support, training, and usability more than anything else. So I would look at the big guys to begin with. They don't necessarily have to be expensive, but you do need to look at how important getting a clear signal and a consistent breadth to the platform is. Because if you think about it, it's the same as when you choose a venue. You say, what venue should I hold my event at? Well, there's a million reasons why a venue is unique in its own right. The platform is the same. I do think there's lots of talk of platforms I mentioned earlier. Just do some research in case studies, not sales pitches. What have been used recently? What was good at particular things? Why was that better than another company? Cvent, we integrate. We have live integration with Zoom, with WebEx, and some of the other big guys. So we've chosen those because they can help us carry data through the process. So we put data in, we experience, and we pull data out. So that would be high on my list.
Thank you, Jamie. Karen, I'm not going to ask you that because a really interesting question is going to come in. So I'm going to throw you a curveball.
I was just going to name two or three that weren't mentioned because I keep seeing questions going, what works for breakouts? All in the Loop, Hop In, just the ones that haven't been mentioned. All in the Loop and Hop In are worth looking at as well. Blue Jeans. So there's a few out there that are quite clever, but again, what my esteemed panelists, colleagues have said, I echo wholeheartedly.
So I'm just going to squeeze this one and push my luck on the time a little bit. It's coming from Rebecca from the Monaco Convention Bureau. How could you replace the element of destination in a virtual event? So the attendees are supposed to attend somewhere. How could you bring that destination to them in a virtual conference?
Well, Zoom lets you do background, so why not just reimagine your background into the beautiful like Croisette or something? But that's certainly one option. But again, that's where I would start to get very clever with my content. And that's where I might use things like a sensory experience. One of the examples I didn't get to in that presentation, you saw a bunch of people wearing headphones. That was a binaural sound experience. So you could put some imagery up on screen and have people listen in with headsets, and you could create the soundscape of Monaco. So really, you can just go row the boat way out there. And actually, I had experienced something along those lines, a binaural sound experience for a safari. And I had saw that in contrast to what was just a print advert that said Jumbo Mombasa. And the sound experience actually brought me back to my own experience on safari, far more than any image of a man standing with his head out of a Jeep. So I have to say, think differently. Don't think the traditional ways. Row the boat out there, creative.
Great. Okay, Jamie, you've got the last 60 seconds.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. So, yeah, there are also signs that there are companies that specialize in virtual events and virtual exhibitions as well as this. So we're about to announce a major exhibition that's going virtual as a virtual conference, a 4-day conference. There's hundreds of sessions, and the experience will be you'll log in to a virtual atrium. So you'll see it all graphically represented like a 3D model. There'll be a screen playing a message from the CEO, and it'd be completely branded in what the event was supposed to look like, but more graphical rather than pictorial, rather than photographic. And then you'll be able to go into each individual theatre. You'll point, you'll click, you'll go through to a theatre. There'll be an experience getting in there, and that'll be completely branded around what the original event was meant to be. So there'll be different rooms with different feels and different experiences based on the original plan of the event. So a little more expensive, but again, it's all relative. If that's something that's important to your brand, it can definitely be achieved virtually.
Richard, I've seen you've unmuted. Did you have anything you'd like to add before we hand back to James?
Yeah, well, in fact, I was going to do a quick close when you're ready, Marty. That's all.
Then I'll say my thanks to the panel and hand over to you, Richard. Thank you, panelists.
Okay, guys, thank you all so very, very much indeed. Really, really appreciate your input. It's amazing how quickly time goes. So whilst the audience is still on, I'm going to push it out there. Guys, if you want to, if the audience would like to hear more on any of the topics that were talked about today, then please let us know. I'm kind of thinking, because what we need to do is get feedback from the audience. I'm taking your pun first, Karen, then talk to the audience. If there's stuff that you want us to take deeper dives on, areas that you want us to bring up as seminars, please let us know so that we can start to work that into the program that we're running. And I think there's certainly around the content development, there's a bigger piece which could do a single piece. And again, on the tech side, having a tech side. One thing I am looking for the audience out there, I am looking for some corporate colleagues that are based in Italy, in Spain, in China, in America. So I'm thinking in a couple of weeks to put together a panel that will have people talking from other parts of the world who've been through this a little bit more than the UK. So if anyone's got somebody that they'd like to put, let James or myself know. But that's it from me, guys. Thank you ever so much, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our wonderful panelists. That was amazing, and never enough time for these things. I'm going to send out a video of this. I will try and edit it as quickly, top and tail it as quickly as possible. My skills are getting better. And I will send out the questions to our panelists that have been asked to make sure that I can send out answers to everyone who attended. Guys, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who's joined us to watch today. If you'd like to suggest things to us at the EMA of what you'd like to hear about, then write to me, james@ema-uk.com. And in the meantime, stay well, stay safe. Just a quick plug. We're running 3 webinars a week at the moment for EMA members. We have a senior leaders forum on a Tuesday, a wellbeing webinar on a Wednesday, and something like this every Thursday. And we are happy to introduce more to make sure everyone's getting what they need. But I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much, everyone, and stay well, stay safe.
Thank you, James.
Bye-bye, everybody.